We are back to another edition. I think, what is this, number 20?
20, 21, 20?
I think it's either 20 or 21 of Behind the Lens. And for those of you listening live today, it is Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day. Remember all of our veterans, those that we have lost in battle, who paid the ultimate price for us to be free and to be able to, in fact, exercise our First Amendment rights here on the air. So... very important day. Well, this is also a very important day for us here at Behind the Lens. We are transitioning because Lydia is defecting. She is going to be leaving us, moving across the country.
I want to say yay and boo at the same time.
It's
boo because we're going to miss her.
Yay for her,
yay
for good opportunities.
Yes.
But we have a big, huge yay. Of course, he may not think it's a yay, actually. Jordan Johnson is here getting broken in today as our new camera and editor person.
He's going to figure out if we're good to hang with. First, he's monitoring the whole thing, right?
He's going to figure it out.
And Brian's still here.
And Brian is here. If Brian leaves, we're dead.
No, I think it'd be better off.
Brian is the straw that stirs the drink.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But I have to say, I'm very excited for Lydia. I'm very excited to have Jordan join us.
Yes.
He came when I put out a call, SOS, saying, help, I need to find someone. Not that anybody can really ever replace Lydia for me, and you know that better than anyone.
I am replaceable, though, by the way. So just interchangeable parts, just little wheel, put me in there. But Jordan, so
3 different people.
Wow.
3 people said you have to talk to Jordan.
Okay, and how did that interview with Jordan go when you met him?
Officially,
yeah.
It was lovely.
Okay.
It was lovely.
Okay, good.
It was over cocktails.
Okay, good. I'm glad you had the water.
At the backstage.
Okay, at the backstage, okay.
Of course. You know, anybody looking for actors for film crews, I'm telling you, that is the place to go. You get people from Sony, you get people from the old Culver. A lot of the employees there are only working part-time because they're filmmakers and actors and actresses in their own right. And many of them, have some very lucrative performance careers going on. So
it's a great location in Culver City.
Yeah. But we have a fun show today at 11:30. We're going to be celebrating Memorial Day and family and whatnot with now where's my notes? There it is. Ryan, Nagata, and George Edelman, co-writers, and Ryan is director. George Edelman is producer of a new comedy horror film coming out on VOD and digital on June 2nd, Amigo Undead.
Amigo Undead. My best friend's, her dog is named Amigo, so I was thinking of a zombie dog when I was watching the movie, because that's the name of the dog is Amigo. But it's not a zombie dog movie. It's a different type of film.
It is a different type of film, but brothers, camping, get into the whole holiday spirit here. But first, talking about family... Courtney Cox.
Oh, Courtney Cox. I really love Just Before I Go. Came out on Blu-ray mid-May, and I feel that movie should get a lot more attention.
It's on VOD now, and I have to admit that I did watch it again, and I paid my money to Time Warner Cable.
Oh, okay, cool. So in the second viewing, did you appreciate it more?
Even more, because I could see more things, and I wasn't looking at it strictly from a critical point of view. I was able to sit and just enjoy what she was creating. Yeah,
it's essentially Just Before I Go is about Sean William Scott plays a guy, a down on his luck guy. He's a manager at a pet store, I think, and he comes home and his wife is cheating on him, and she leaves him, and he decides that his life really means nothing, and he decides to actually commit suicide, and it's actually kind of a really serious subject matter when you come to think of it. But Courtney Cox spins it as a black comedy, and it's about him returning to his hometown to settle a score with a couple of people, but along the way, family lovingly gets in the way of his plans and kind of comedic / tragedy ensues.
Well, as we talked about a few weeks ago when we were talking about Courtney working with water, when we had our water theme going with the Drownsman and Courtney with Just Before I Go. And that was, an irreverent comedy. Courtney is prone to irreverent comedy.
Yeah, and speaking of Courtney, if you pick up the Blu-ray, check out the director's commentary because she has some really nuts and bolts lessons on the challenges and perils and the joys of indie filmmaking, and there's a couple of little kind of facts that I had no idea about. Like, for example, the beginning of the movie, as you know, it has a very light, frothy kind of score, and she actually asked director Gus Van Sant on how to actually score the film, what kind of tone did she want to convey. Because the movie itself is very serious, but the score actually, the light score underlines the whole kind of change in tone in the movie. So stuff like that. I had no idea that Sean William Scott had tattoos on his hands, so they had to color correct his hand. So a lot of really interesting stuff on that Blu-ray. And during the interview, which we both interviewed,
we were at, yes.
Yeah, I talked to Courtney, and she explained how Just Before I Go was a complete family experience for her.
That's who I am in life. I'm really close. I'm all about community, family. So it was that way in making the movie. It was that way in finding something. I mean, as I name the movies I love, they're all about family. I love family drama. I love, Ordinary People. I love all those movies. Kramer vs. Kramer was one of my favorite films. Anything to do with real life, real people. I mean, my family alone is a lot of these characters in this movie. So yes, family is important, and I relied on a lot of family for in making it as well. I mean, Coco sings in it. Johnny, my fiance, him and Gary Lightbody, Snow Patrol, wrote 3 of the songs, original songs in it. David's in the movie.
And that's ex-husband David Arquette.
And obviously, to save a little bit of money, they shot scenes from Just Before I Go at her house in Malibu.
At her house, yeah.
Yeah,
So now, and, I had a chance to also follow up. We heard Courtney talk the other week a little bit about a first-time director filming in water, the challenges of that. But what a lot of people still may not realize is that Courtney she's not a first-time director. She directed a Lifetime telemovie, and she directed about 12 or 13 episodes of her series Cougar Town. But as any director will tell you, when you make the jump from episodic TV to feature film, there are some differences. But Courtney has a really great perspective on it, and here's what she had to say about that.
Courtney, you're no stranger to directing. You've directed at least a dozen episodes of Cougar Town. You did a Lifetime movie. You did a short. Do you find a learning curve between going from episodic television into feature film?
I think I know this seems strange, but you have so much more, well, obviously you have more freedom when you do a feature. It's easier to tell the story. To do episodic television, and I can only speak on, I've only done Cougar Towns, but you want to do something that sets yourself apart from every other. You got to follow the format, but you also want to make your own mark on it. And with everything going so fast, you have to actually think, how can I make this more interesting? How can I do it different than just, master coverage? So I think doing Cougar Town actually made me, I had to think on my feet faster to make it more interesting for me. I'm not saying anybody else could notice it, but the little things, and then you inevitably cut most of the stuff out because it's so quick. But anyway, I think that was a great training for me to be able to go, I have freedom now. I can do this in one shot. I don't have to go tight there. Oh, this is great. I can use long lenses. I don't have to do it on the soundstage. It's nice to direct and have freedom. And I'm really specific about the way things look. And that's fun. I like to have that freedom.
And you could tell when we were talking to her, she truly was excited about the feature film experience.
What's also interesting about her is because of her career, her prolific career, she could have actually, I'm guessing, transitioned to feature filmmaking with kind of close to a romantic comedy or drama tentpole type of film with a bigger budget, but with, probably not as good material. So I think with her first feature directing debut, she went for the material. She went for the script. And, kudos to that. So I really enjoyed the film.
Yeah, and that's something that we hear so often from actors and from directors. It boils down to the page.
Yeah.
It boils down to the page, the printed word, what is inspiring them. And, you know, when it comes to inspiration, I think one of the most inspiring films of the year just opened this weekend, Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland. Yeah. It had a lot of vision, and it made a couple bucks over the weekend.
It made a couple bucks over the weekend, but, you know, it also has a few little flaws in it. Now, I'd have to say, technically,
right,
Brad Bird and his team, Scott Chambliss, the production designer, just went above and beyond with those huge set pieces that were built. They did not do CGI on this whole film. But I think there were some wasted opportunities.
On the good note, though, I love Britt Robertson. She's a great lead, and I think she really anchors the film. You know, even though George Clooney's prominently in the trailer along with her, I think it's really her film.
Well, and hand in hand with Britt, I think, is Rafie Cassidy.
Right, yeah.
Who plays the character Athena. And Tomorrowland, because there's still so many people that haven't seen it, and Disney really has wanted to keep all the, you know, a lot of this under wrap as to what happens in this film. So we're being sketchy.
You know, my thing with the movie is, you know, you have a really nuanced eye as far as the technical details and the visual details. For me, it didn't emotionally grab me because I wanted to live more in Tomorrowland without giving too much away. And a lot of it, to me, as far as the plot mechanics, it was a big part of the movie was about getting there. And I wish they kind of luxuriated in that area, that arena, that environment a lot longer to give us a more resonant feel. But that's just my take. As far as all the production design and the actors and the vision of Bird, you got to give him credit. But it just, I thought I was going to be emotionally grabbed, but it left me wanting. What about you?
Well, with this particular one, what really motivated me, what inspired me, and it did tap into the dreamer within me. And a lot of that was due to the dialogue and to some very powerful monologues that Clooney had. Because his character goes from being a wide-eyed young boy in 1964 filled with all the hope and wonder of NASA and technology and where we're going in the universe to a very cynical 50-some-year-old man at all the disaster we see in the world.
Yeah.
It is because of George Clooney that so many of us, our eyes have been opened to what goes on in the world, to the horrors in the world, and how we can stop it. George Clooney was the first person to really put eyes on Darfur.
Right.
And, you know, it's through him that many of us our social awareness has been opened, and the hope for a better life, which is why some of the monologues are so powerful and speak so loudly. And George actually, at the press day for the film, he actually talked about, you know, his experience growing up and what brought him to the character of Frank Walker and the world of Tomorrowland.
I grew up during the Cold War period, and I always found that, although we always thought that the world would end with the nuclear holocaust at some point, it was pretty hopeful. There was an awful lot of things going on that you felt you could change. I grew up in an era where the voice, the power of being one, really did feel as if it mattered. You know, we had obviously the riots that are reminiscent of the things we're looking at today, but we had the civil rights movement, we had Vietnam, and we had women's rights movements, and all those things that you felt you could actually have some part of changing. And actually, if you look at the things that changed in those 60s and early 70s, the individual voices did make a difference. It wasn't governments doing it necessarily. So I didn't ever have that great disappointment in mankind. I always felt like it's going to work out in the end, and I still feel that way. And so what I loved about the film was that it reminds you that young people don't wake up, they're not born and start out their lives cynical or angry or bigoted. You have to be taught all those things. And I watch the world now and think, well, I see really good signs from young people out there. And I feel as if the world will get better. And I've always been an optimist. I've been a realist, but I've been an optimist about it. And I really related to the film because I thought, look, Brad and Damon want to tell a story that's entertaining, because first of all, that's really entertaining, but that it's hopeful.
and we're talking Brad Bird and screenwriter Damon Lindelof.
With little context, though, I still haven't seen The Iron Giant, or The Incredibles. So within that kind of oeuvre of Bird's. So maybe, you know what, I'm thinking if I saw both those films going into Tomorrowland and seeing where he comes from on a creative and philosophical aesthetic, I think I would have appreciated the movie on a much deeper level like you did.
Well, and one thing that I think it is safe to divulge to people is because Walt Disney was very prominent presence in the 1964 World's Fair.
Right.
And it was the debut of It's a Small World ride. And
yeah.
Yes, we do get a taste of that, and you get to hear that theme song that will stay in your head for days and days and days to come.
Oh, the opening moments.
It is a small world after all.
Yeah. The opening moments of the film are very evocative, too.
They really are.
Yeah.
They are. But I think it's, even if you don't get inspired or it doesn't tap into the dreamer in you, I think the visionary aspect of the film, the visuals are just well worth it. And I'm calling it now. Michael Giacchino, who did the score.
Yeah.
It is Oscar nomination, and I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls out a win next year.
Well, it was co-written by Lindelof, right? Oh, wait, who?
I'm talking about the score right now.
Yeah, but he wrote. So Damon Lindelof, he produced Lost, and its score was composed by Giacchino, and he has one of my favorite scores. There's an episode on Lost called The Constant, scored by Giacchino, and very emotional moment for me. I love that episode from Lost, and I love Giacchino as a composer.
Yeah, and his score here is
excellent.
fabulous.
Yeah, it's excellent.
And he scored Cars too. He's one of the few men in the world that I think could actually score music for, Mater in a bathroom in Tokyo. So, with that being said, we're going to break.
Behind the Lens is sponsored in part by the Culver City Observer. Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com.
And we are back. Welcome back to Behind the Lens, Monday, May 25th, 2015. I'm here with my partner in cinematic crime, Greg Srisavasdi.
So this is pretty corny. Have you ever danced on the edge?
Oh,
that is pretty corny, but
that's pretty corny.
So.
I'm not saying anything.
You're not at
about
liberty
that.
to discuss previous matters in the past. Okay.
No.
Well, yesterday I spent 6 to 7 hours in my little cubby hole of a room watching this series called Dancing on the Edge, starring Matthew Good and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and it's the first series I've completed in, I guess, since Lost. I haven't been watching TV shows, just on a binge level for a long time, and it recently came out on Blu-ray via PBS, and it's an amazing series. It's kind of a mixture of a whodunit, murder mystery, drama, romantic drama, and it has a lot of jazz in it as well. Matthew Good, he plays a music journalist in London in the early 1930s, and he's kind of a glad-handing, talented journalist. He's very good in promotions, and he sees this band led by Chiwetel Ejiofor, Oscar-winning actor, right? No, did he win the Oscar for that? No, that film won the Oscar. Did he win the Oscar?
I don't remember. I don't think
Anyways,
so.
He's a great actor. I loved him in this movie called Spartan as well. So Chiwetel, he's a band leader, jazz band leader, plays the piano, and Matthew tries to get Chiwetel and his band to play in this hotel in London called the Imperial, and it's kind of a shaggy, once prestigious but kind of shaggy dog hotel, and he wants them to bring business to the place. And everything's going really great. They're buddy-buddy until a murder occurs. And what ensues is like 6+ hours of jazz music, some really intense romantic scenes, if you like Matthew Good or Chiwetel, and some really good romantic sequences there. But essentially, I was watching recently those promos for the second season of True Detective. And Chiwetel and Matthew have such chemistry that if they ever did some kind of Brit version of True Detective third season, they'd make great detectives because they play off. That's pretty much the bread and butter of Dancing on the Edge, is their innate chemistry. And it's so funny, the murder mystery, that whodunit, ends actually a lot earlier than expected, and the final episode of that first season, it's not, I think it was canceled, it's not going into a second season, but the final episode is actually an interesting recap of prior events, and it's all since Matthew's the music journalist, the whole hour is spent him interviewing members of the band before the actual murder took place. So it's a really interesting series. I really loved it. It's out on Blu-ray. I highly recommend it. There's a 20-minute special feature that I haven't seen yet that after the show I'm going to check it out. But that's why you haven't heard from me for the last couple of days. I've been in my room watching Dancing on the Edge and also Amigo Undead. So
well.
There you go.
But now Matthew Good though. I mean, you saw him in Stoker.
Stoker's one of my, because I love that kind of, I love visualists.
Yes.
Guys like Brian De Palma, Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm blanking on that director's name right now. The movie was penned by Wentworth Miller.
That is still the visuals on that and the performances. His performance, was, and he joked with me because we've had over the years. He had done that film with Amanda Bynes where he plays the undercover CIA guy who's protecting her. She's the president's daughter.
Right. And long time ago, right?
And I've seen it so many times, and he's always kidded me about, he goes, "You are the only person. All the money that I made off that film, you paid for." So when I with Stoker, and I said, "Okay, I'm in love with Stoker," he goes, "Thank God you can stop watching the other movie now."
Very quickly on Stoker, a beautiful film to watch. Definitely, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Nicole Kidman, Mia Wasikowska, also awesome. But the thing that I really love about it, being a Hitchcock fan, is it seemed to me that Matthew Good kind of cribbed Joseph Cotton's performance in Shadow of a Doubt.
Very much so.
I'm not saying he stole it, but it just it echoes, and it's a great homage to that performance. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's one of Joseph Cotton's finest performances in Shadow of a Doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is. And as a matter of fact, TCM just had it on within the past 10 days again.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I had to stop what I was doing in the middle of the night to watch it. So,
you know what? Bottom line is Matthew Good, underrated actor. Just start watching a lot of his movies. I don't think I saw the movie that you were referring to, but Stoker, Dancing on the Edge, two great Matthew Good projects. So.
And actually, it wasn't Amanda Bynes he was with. It was Mandy Moore.
Oh, okay. Mandy Moore.
Mandy Moore.
Good.
We had all those father-daughter overseas in Europe movies come out at the same time.
I'm not good with transition, but did a Nightingale sing in Berkeley Square or not? I love standards. So
I have to say, Nightingale, and we'll probably get to most of this in the second half hour after our boys for Amigo Undead call in. Nightingale, directed by my dear Bandito brother friend, Elliott Lester. Nightingale was one of my must-see picks for LA Film Festival last year. And it is a performance that so many people missed of David Oyelowo. Everybody talked about his performance in Selma. Quite honestly, his performance in Nightingale, tour de force, puts his performance as Martin Luther King to shame.
That's kind of saying a lot.
It is the film. It's written by Frederick Mensch. It is absolutely riveting. David Oyelowo plays a character named Peter Snowden. He is a returning war vet. He lives at home with his mother, and there's something not quite right about him. And it's through that the film takes place within the confines of one house, the house he shares with his mother. Although we don't see his mother.
Oh, wow.
We don't see other people. Everything is done, phones, laptops, computers, and Elliott and I get into all of that with a very in-depth interview that we did. But the whole film is David performing.
Wow, it sounds like kind of a Roman Polanski homage, kind of paranoid thriller, claustrophobic.
And kind of descending into madness.
Oh, wow.
But he is just astounding. But it looks like we're going to get to my interview clips with Elliott shortly, because right now we have. We're going to talk some. We're going to talk some Amigo Undead now, aren't we?
Hello,
boys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. So we've got Ryan Nagata and George Edelman on the line, talking about I think, a perfect movie to talk about on Memorial Day when people are camping and having picnics and parties. Amigo Undead. Guys, this is, I don't know if your publicist Annie told you, but it's campy, it's cute, it's comedy horror, there's silly movie references, you've got character and horror cliches, but it's all done with this great loving touch. There's actually moments of sweetness in here in a horror film.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Those are very kind words.
This is, I am one of my most pleasant surprises of the year.
Wow, well, that is great praise. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So you both co-wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where's Ryan? Ryan directed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here.
And then George, you produced.
Yes.
And you guys have worked together before.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
We've been working together. We became friends in high school, and we started, making stuff. We started making stuff together. As soon as we met, we were 15 or 16. In our spare time.
Mm-hmm. And but now
it kind of never ended.
But what you've now done, taking all your little shorts and all your little clips and your, all of that, now you have jumped in to the deep end of the pool with your first feature film.
Yeah, it's true. The first feature film that anyone's going to see.
Okay. Now wait a minute. Let's hear about
college and high school that.
I think we need to hear about the others. I think we need to hear about the others. The minute you say that nobody's going to see, the red flag goes up.
Well, we, like a lot of people, I think, of our sort of era, grew up with the camcorders, and you had access to making movies and videos and stuff. So we had it in our minds very early on that we wanted to make feature-length films. So we were attempting that. Probably before we were ready to, and we were trying to sort of string together feature narratives and spent our summers and our free time filming and putting these things together, editing them on the earliest video editing stuff there was, and in a way it sort of contributed to our learning about how the process works in a trial and error kind of manner. So, There's some movies in a drawer somewhere that we made a long time ago.
Now, what made this the right time for you to jump into a feature film, and specifically a film like Amigo Undead?
Well, George and I have done all kinds of, I've directed some television, sketch comedy on television. But we always really have had a passion for feature films. That's kind of what we wanted to do, and I think we got to the point where we were pitching web series and that sort of thing to various companies, and I think we just realized if we want to make movies, we really have to just go
make
out
a movie,
and make one. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the reason it was Amigo Undead was because we wanted to do something that sort of touched on our sensibility, our weird sense of humor. Sort of felt like you said, like movie-related, movie jokes, and sort of film savvy. And we wanted to do it in this sort of like horror comedy genre, which is easier to do in some ways on the cheap. And so it became something we could manage to pull off, given limited resources and limited time, and it was actually a script we had that was a much bigger concept, but we stripped it down to the bare essentials to make, like, how do we make this more fun, more indie, and more doable for us.
How tough was it not shooting in a nice air-conditioned room all the time, and you're kind of shooting out in the elements with all that heat? Was it a lot easier than it looked, or what's the challenge in kind of braving those?
It was harder.
It was way harder than it looked. It was the blistering heat in the desert, and then freezing cold at night. Like, we had a 2-week shoot basically, with only 1 day off, I think, or maybe 2 days off. But it was like just so much temperature craziness. It was like we went from a week of days where the days were so hot in between takes, actors like ran into the cars and blasted the AC, to then nights that were so cold they were running into cars and blasting the heat. And that was kind of that was the spirit of the process. But everyone had fun with it, and it kept a good mood throughout, which I think translates.
So how did you go about, since you already had this script before, what was the genesis of the script? What prompted this? I love the idea of the two brothers, one's adopted, and he's Asian, and the other one is kind of a buffoon, and it's always the mom likes you best, no, mom likes you best, and they become estranged, but they get together for a birthday party under false pretenses. Where does a story like that come from? Are these from antics that the two of you have perpetrated?
It's funny you say that. There's a little bit of that to it. The movies we used to make, the shorts we used to make, we would almost always be out in the desert. Because living in LA, it was just like you can drive out within an hour, you're in the desert. You can make a movie. It's visually interesting, and it's a bit of a departure.
And nobody will bother you out there.
Right, nobody will bother you.
For the most part.
Right. And so we did that, and it kind of was like the experiences of going out there. And we would always joke, like, oh, what if accidentally someone died? And what if we decided to bury them? And then it sort of like spiraled from there, this humor of like, this dark humor of that kind of nightmare unfolding. And, it was something that was kind of germinating in our heads for a long time because we did all this shoots out in the desert. So in some ways, this weird assortment of characters on this weird misadventure in the middle of nowhere felt very familiar to us.
Mm-hmm. So how do you go about then stripping it down from your grander dreams with your original script into something, shall we say, affordable?
Yeah. Well, I think one big way we did it, and Ryan can probably speak to it on the director end better than me, but I think one big way we did it was sometimes you have ideas you put in a script that aren't necessary for the story, but are just there because you think, wouldn't that be cool? Or like, wouldn't that be fun to do? And when you're really talking about what makes the movie a good story, a lot of times you don't need that. And in some ways, when you're stripping it down, you end up getting a little more creative, I think, and making funnier decisions. I think the version we ended up with is the better version. Ryan, I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I was just thinking about production value and and how you strip out a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of locations that were in the original script that we just stripped out, so it's really like out in the middle of nowhere now. And I think that actually makes it scarier in a lot of ways because they're in this weird desert area where there just doesn't seem to be anybody, not even any roads, really. So it makes it scarier in some ways.
It lends itself to the plot a little bit better too, because they're really out there and there's real danger and the kind of people they interact with could become a little more eccentric and funnier as a result, I think.
Now,
can you guys talk about just picking Randall as your lead? He's just such a great straight man, and he doesn't really need to say anything, but he's just inherently funny. What is it about him that makes him a special lead for you guys, especially with your film?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. With Randall doesn't he can say these ridiculous things and say it in kind of a deadpan way, and it's just hilarious. We were fortunate enough to meet Randall through Channel 101, which is a kind of an internet festival in Hollywood, and we knew him from that, and we had always kind of admired each other's work, and so we just asked him to be in this, and this was before the interview, so I think he was a little more available then. He was already kind of an established presence in the
I think another thing, when we first started writing it, it wasn't, we changed the script for him, because we had this thought, we were trying to cast the part, and we couldn't really settle on someone, and we kept thinking, who's the best straight man we know, who's going to do that the best with all these wacky other characters and performances, and Randall came to mind, and so then we thought, well, actually, we changed it around to make it, to suit it to Randall, and I think it opened up so much more in terms of the script, and obviously Randall's great, and we were very happy with it, but just kind of one of those things that, wasn't always the plan from the get-go, but it ended up working out really well.
Well, George, let me ask you, how excited are you now with Randall's success on Veep as, Danny Chung, and now, fresh off the boat, I mean, it is, it's a hit for ABC, and his character of Lewis. How fortuitous is this timing? How exciting is that you've got that audience that may follow to the film?
It's amazing because it's not something anyone could have predicted in a way. And I think, it's strange or maybe a little corny to say so, but I think if you make decisions, it's not always true, but I think if you make the right decisions for your movie because you want your movie to be good and you work with people who you genuinely think are funny and talented, things like this maybe are a little more likely to happen because you've put yourself in a position where you made a good creative decision, and I think other people realize, hey, Randall Park is really funny and he's great and we want to see more of him, and it kind of like translated. It felt like it was appropriate. It doesn't surprise me, I guess I should say, and I think that it's great for the movie, and Randall's been a great champion of the movie the whole time too. So we're very excited about that.
I guess this is kind of a weird question, but in a way, was this a personal film for you guys? Because, growing up, did you guys ever, after a long day's work, just go home and play video games, or did you have like stupid friends who'd have Mad Libs in their backpack? You get a group of guys together, and we're kind of dumbed down so many ways. So in a way, does this have kind of a personal resonance for both you guys as writers?
I think that whenever you write characters, it's, at least for me, like there is a part of you in them. Like there's definitely aspects of both the Kevin and Norm characters that I think represent, us in some way. I mean, George and I are both pretty introverted in a lot of ways, but we're also kind of crazy like Norm. Like he invested in some crazy scheme, and we went out and tried to make a feature film. So
I never thought about that, but that's true.
Great analogy there.
There's like the serious, the straight-laced guy who's always planning stuff and doesn't want to make any mistakes, and then the other half. I think there's definitely parts of us in these characters.
Yeah, I think that we both kind of thought when we were writing the Kevin character, Randall's character, that there was a part of us that really connected to particularly this idea that, someone stops him on the way out of work in that early scene and says, do you want to go do something? He's like, I kind of planned on doing something different. And it sounds stupid, but to us it made sense. We're like, we're kind of like that. And it seems like, well, that's part of what this story is going to be and who this story is about. So it is personal in that way. And, like you said, all the crazy dumbed down guys in the desert thing, that that we come by that naturally just because we made all these movies out in the desert in shorts with all of our buddies, and people act weird and silly, and that all fed into that for sure.
Well, now as great as Randall is and how perfectly cast he is, you've got to have the counter to that, which you found with Steve Agee as Norm, and then the supporting guys, especially Michael McCafferty, who just had me in stitches with as the right-wing postal worker. Because you never know what a postal worker's going to do.
Right.
How did you go about casting, everyone else, particularly the role of Norm and locking onto Steve, and then the other three in your little group here?
Well, I mean, the short version is we all came through this channel. Almost all of us came through this Channel 101 thing that we did together. Steve's been in it forever. Mike's been involved in it forever. And so we all had kind of, like Ryan said, appreciated each other's comedy and writing, and we'd work together a lot, and we liked working together. So everybody kind of was on the same page with that. Some of the other guys just came through knowing people in the LA comedy scene, comics and improv guys like Josh Fadem, who plays Ian, and Ed Galvez, who plays Jovan. And that, that, again, it was sort of like the energy of it. But I think with Steve, with the casting of Norm, we kind of we thought Steve would make an interesting fit for the part. And again, we kind of re-tailored it to him once we made that decision. And it also opened up more. So in a similar sort of way, once we settled on Steve, we knew Norm would change a little to fit what we thought was funny about Steve, like what we thought Steve could do really well. But they make a great team, we feel. So
your entire ensemble really plays well, off of each other, and it very believable. Very believable.
Thank you, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Now,
I think it's because we all knew each other, and everyone was pretty comfortable from the first minute that we started shooting, just kind of riffing off of each other. There's a good energy, like George said, with the whole thing, I think.
Now, something I find very interesting from a visual standpoint with the film is the work that you did with your cinematographer, with Ben Plumer. Because so often in the desert, it's just dirt. And unless you're lensing it right, unless you're lighting it right and playing off the natural surroundings, it's just going to look like dirt. You have you have texture going on here. How did you go about designing? Did you storyboard? Did you shot list? And what were the considerations for designing the visual look of the film to give it some depth?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, there's one thing that with the desert that I always I was very aware of is like foliage and stuff. I had this idea with it that I didn't want to see any green, and so we actually ended up taking a lot of like green plants and that sort of thing out of it in post, and gave it kind of this contrast, the dirty look. I just thought it should contrast what the city looks like earlier with Kevin, how he's going into this weird world.
I think you talked a lot about your color palette and how you really wanted to stick to it, and you can see it in a lot of the scenes throughout. It sort of it changes and grows as the movie goes on, and it's kind of an interesting thing to watch visually, to see the way you change the color palette through the course of the movie.
It was storyboarded beforehand, just very loosely, but we're shooting like, I don't know how many pages a day. It was like we shot for 11 days and like a 100-page script. You can do the math, but
so you're doing about 9-10 pages a day.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So it was unfortunately, like the visuals were kind of a secondary as to just getting everything shot. But one of the things that I was aware of constantly was color. That was like one of the few things that I knew that if there was kind of a limited palette, then it would at least give the film kind of a unified look. It's like the very baseline kind of thing you can do. So
now you've got some really beautiful night shots in there. That they're very they have a luxurious feel with the inkiness of the black. Did you shoot day for night, night for night? How did you do that?
No, it's shot night for night for the most part. I'm trying to remember that there might be a couple of things that are just sort of shot kind of in between.
Kind of like dusk. We did a few things like at dusk and a few things at dawn, but we did mostly shoot the night at night. And we, I think that there's stuff in the middle there at night at the convenience store gas station that looks really, really great. It came out really well. And a lot of it was just, Ryan's kind of a visual artist as well as a filmmaker. He builds things and makes models and props, and he's been in production design. So I think the ability to kind of identify what would look good, what you could use or maximize the look of the movie, we really owe it to his experience with all of that, with his production design experience in a lot of ways. But the night stuff we shot at night, and it's tough to light at night. You have to be creative. That was another way in which we had to kind of. Yeah,
they were all mostly LED lights.
Wow.
They were fairly new at the time. I think there's a lot more. You should. I wish Ben was here; he could talk about it more. But we didn't have very much, so he did a very, very good job getting it to look a lot nicer than the equipment that we had.
Now I know you were shooting digitally. What were you shooting on? What were you using?
It was a red Scarlet.
Red.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because now, Sony's got this great F6 out now that shoots with virtually no light at all at night.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's crazy. It almost doesn't look like night, really. It's like a weird dusk.
It has a weird
no light.
texture.
Like if you were there in person, it would seem like pitch black.
But it works really well for horror films.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's funny. George and I have been doing this so long now, since high school, and there's so much more you can do now with equipment. Like we were shooting like on mini DV in the old days.
Right.
I was shooting on Super 8 in my day.
Just in layman's terms, for you guys, how important is it just running through the festival circuit and showing your film out there to different audiences from all around the world? How has that experience been for you with your film?
It's a unique thing to get to see, even if there's festivals we didn't get out to. There were a few of them we couldn't make it to. But for me, it was really cool from the writing perspective to see what jokes play in different places and why and how. How the reaction varies from place to place. Some the movie always gets laughs, which is great. It gets laughs throughout, but there's some things that seem to play really well in some places, and in other places it would be something completely different that they love, and that's a cool learning process. And it's cool because you get to see, you get to share the movie with people who are fans of movies, film fans, and the people who go to horror fests or comedy fests are, they're like us, and they get what we're doing. And that's kind of cool too, because you want the kind of people you make the movie for. When you set out to make a movie, you kind of think, well, I think this is the kind of movie I'd like to see, and it's very rewarding to know that other people out there are enjoying it. It's the best part of it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
festivals are always fun.
And now everybody will be able to see Amigo Undead on June 2nd, correct?
June 2nd, yes.
June
We're
2nd.
Really excited.
VOD and digital, courtesy of the smart people at Gravitas who were intelligent enough to take the distribution for this for you.
Yes, absolutely. We're very happy and excited. Yeah, June 2nd.
So that's VOD, digital. When's DVD coming?
You know what? I don't know what the plan with DVD is. People are asking, and we don't have any. There isn't a current timetable on that. So we'll. I think we're going to see how this goes first, and and then kind of figure it out from there with Gravitas. But that's as far as I know right now. But everybody's consuming their movies digitally these days, so that's kind of the go-to place.
Well, I'm still a go to the theater girl. So.
Oh yeah. I agree.
Guys,
there's nothing like that, but
Guys, thank you so much, Amigo Undead, Ryan Nagata, George Edelman, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for having us and taking the time. It was really fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And that was Amigo Undead.
Very quickly before I go to break, it's worth watching a second time because there's some really great one-liners in the film.
Oh, they're terrific.
Very funny stuff.
Very good stuff. So we're going to take a quick break, Brian, and then we'll be back to hear what Elliott Lester has to say about Nightingale.
Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is the #1 newspaper in Culver City, covering local news, politics, and community events, with sports by Mitch Chortkoff and movie reviews by Debbie Lynn Elias. Culver City Observer is the place to go to be in the know. When you think Culver City and the heart of Screenland, think Culver City Observer. When you think movies and movie reviews, think Culver City Observer. Culver City Observer, a division of Arizona Newspaper Group, is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com.
are back with Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Lynn Elias, MovieSharkTheBlur.com, along with Greg Srisavasdi with DeepestDream.com.
Thank you. Yes, DeepestDream.com.
Yes, Deepest Dream. For those of you that aren't going to watch the video portion, you know, we'll remind you of these things occasionally.
Yeah, I thought we weren't going video this week, so that's why I've
No,
won this. I apologize. I didn't spruce up for the occasion.
You didn't
so,
spruce up. All right,
period,
you
so I
guys,
apologize for that.
maybe you don't want to see the video this week because you really don't want to see what Greg looks like.
I love Nightingales, though.
Nightingale is... You love Nightingales or Nightingale?
Nightingales. I love Nightingales, and then you got to transition to Nightingale.
Yes, this movie. You know, Elliott Lester. This is a real. This film was a real joy for me to discover last year.
Is it scary?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but it's a psychological bender watching David Oyelowo's performance. Elliott is part of the Bandito Brothers. Bandito Brothers are based in Culver City. Guys like Scott Waugh, who directed Need for Speed, Lance Gilbert, who was stunt coordinator. These are Mouse McCoy, who worked with Scott. They did Act of Valor.
Okay. Oh, wow, yeah.
Which is a perfect movie for this weekend. And I have had the privilege of knowing Scott Waugh's brother Rick Roman Waugh, their dad Fred,
right.
Lance Gilbert
Rick's a good director.
For over 30 years.
Wow.
So to know the boys as youngsters, to see them grow up and see them put together Bandito Brothers with all this second unit stuff. They get a ton. Mouse McCoy has a new commercial out there for Mustang. They do the real heavy driving, precision, stunt work, shooting. And Elliott, in addition to Nightingale, he's done music videos, he's done commercials, and he went from Nightingale into a web series called Chop Shop that was very cool.
Okay,
very cool. So for me to see one of my boys, you know, put out a film like Nightingale just makes me very, very happy.
And it was one of your favorites from last year's LAFF.
It was definitely one of my favorites, and it remains one of my favorite films of the year now that it'll be on HBO on May 29th.
Okay.
But, you know, it's an interesting story. It was written by Frederick Mensch. And I asked Elliott to start off with, how did the story come to him, given his music video background? And you see the fluidity of camera movement within Nightingale. You know, what tailor-made this for him?
I mean, if you want to go about how the script came to me, I had another movie I was doing at the same time. My producing partner, Josh Weinstock, who's a wonderful guy, he said, listen, you should read the script. He literally gave it to me on a Wednesday. And I picked it up, and I couldn't put it down. And something spoke to me in just artistic terms. It was like, I have to make this. It's one guy, camera, script. It's a way of relearning your craft. It's like, if you want to find your voice, how are you going to do it? So let's take it back to the basic tenets of cinema. I never thought about it in terms of scale. I just thought in terms of, like, this is a story I feel I really want to tell because the character is so interesting. And Frederick's script just spoke to me. And unlike with a lot of movies, I'm sure you know, it didn't take 2 years to make. It took weeks to make. We optioned it on the Monday. We went to see Katrina Wolf at BN Films. She greenlit it within a matter of a month, and we were off and making the film. Shot it over, a few weeks. I met with a lot of actors, though. I will say that we definitely met with a lot of people. But there was something. David had been on my radar as a guy who'd been in films, hadn't done an American leading role. So when his agent called, they were like, "Look, just meet him." Of course, you want to meet new talent.
Sure.
But I wasn't expecting what I met in the room, which is, I don't know if you've met him, but there's a...
No, I haven't.
There's this spiritual connection, and I use that in the broadest sense. The man just emanates, and he speaks the truth. He is an artist in the senses, and I try to align myself with that. You're an artist looking for the truth. I'm looking for the truth in the character, the truth in the story, and the honesty. And he was just like, look, he's like, Elliott, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know who this character is. I don't even know how to begin prepping this part. I just know that if we do it and we try, we might make art. We might make something great, and there might be blood on the wall. You know, so, you know, we shook hands and he walked away, and he came up to me after the meeting. He said, can you just do one thing for me? Can you just let me know quickly if it's not going to happen? And of course, you know, I hadn't made my mind up. Mm-hmm. So I went home, and then he sent me this beautiful letter the following day, which was an actor talking about commitment to a role. He was telling me about how he'd done this play in London where he'd been shackled on stage for like 3-4 hours. And what you're hearing in that is passion and commitment, not a guy who's just showing up, because I've worked with actors who just show up for the paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's fine as well. That's fine. You need those films.
But as we got more in depth, and we're going to go out of order here, and we're going to jump to clip 4 in a second, because the visuals are a real strong suit here, in addition to David's performance. The cinematographer here is Peter Vermeer, and if you recognize the name Vermeer, yes, he is a direct descendant of Vermeer, the master painter. No cousin, direct descendant. And it was something that Elliott did not know. They'd been friends for 18 years, and he learned it. But the visuals are so key here. And here's what Elliott had to say about designing the visuals.
How did the two of you develop this visual language, this visual tonal bandwidth, the use of color, the saturation, which, yes, it goes with the whole, you know, the surreal aspect of Peter Snowden's mind and his reality. But the way you use the camera and the way you use light and color, how did you two design this?
You know, when you're shooting like that and you have one actor, you've got time to prep. Mm-hmm. We prepped and prepped and prepped. There were no mistakes. I mean, I say that in the sense of, we worked off when I do a movie or a project, I do what's called a Bible. And Peter would come in and meet with me, and we would turn pages, read the scenes, and we would write down ideas, and we would form a shot list with colours and images from, not from films per se, but from photography and art, you know, or like a line that would inspire, and we would map out the entire film. You know, obviously with the blocking, you know, David, we would work together on a blocking, but the colour palette was, you know, would get filthier and filthier and filthier as he starts to strip back. You know, it's like it's like going to Vegas, you know, at night, and you stare at it in the beautiful neon, and in the morning when they're cleaning up, it's kind of ugly. And we did have an amazing crew. You know, Peter's light is very, very specific. We didn't want anything to feel too directional, except at the end when the lights moved to the house. But we wanted it to feel very bounced, and you know, summer, late summer.
And sadly, that is all the time we have today, once again, at The Wire. So we'll hear the rest of what Elliott has to say next week. We've got some more guests calling in with some new films next week. And until then, Behind the Lens, tune in, log on.